Hi, I'm Dana. Welcome to our video. Today I want to talk about the so-called terrible twos. You've heard it before. You're most likely living through it right now. And I want to give you some tips today for handling toddler behavior. I can remember working with a client once who said to me, oh, well, this is what she does and her behavior's kind of off and she throws tantrums a lot, but she's just 2, right? It's just the terrible twos, right? And I said, well, it is, but if you don't do something to correct the behavior now, guess what? It's going to turn into terrible 3s and horrible 4s and awful 5s, right? It won't get any better if you don't teach the skills for managing behaviors. So you can't really just throw your hands up and say, oh, well, she's going to outgrow this. It's fine. You can't do that. I'm sorry. It really will not phase out if you don't actually do something about it. So here's a couple of tips I want to share with you today. First of all, toddlers love choice, right? They're coming into their own, they're understanding that they have their own willpower, and they want to test that out and kind of see, what can I do to get you to do things that I want and need from you? And so they're really just trying to navigate the waters of, what can I do, and where's your job, and what's my role? And all of this is changing for them. So one of the things most toddlers do around that is that they push boundaries, right? I love, my favorite quote about toddlers is that they're like little night watchmen going around checking all the doors, but they don't really want to find any open. And you have to remember that. They're pushing you, they're testing you, but they don't really want the power. They're not equipped to deal with it. So giving some confined choice gives a toddler that feeling like, oh, I have some control here. I have a little bit of power, but not so much that they, just become overwhelmed. So some examples for that would be at story time, you put out 2 books and let your toddler pick one. Or 2 sets of pajamas and your toddler can pick which one. Or 2 pairs of socks or shirts. Or you can see where I'm going with that. Just some confined choice really will give them a sense of power around that. Another thing I love with toddlers is distractions, right? What can happen so quickly for a toddler is that frustration can quickly turn into a tantrum. And often we can stop it before it starts with some distraction, right? So an example would be if you see your child getting frustrated with another child, for example, to come in with something else to offer. So maybe you pick up a different toy and try to entice your toddler with that toy instead of hitting the other child for his toy. Okay, so distractions are great. If you're trying to wean a toddler, for example, distractions are an excellent way to wean a child. Just let's have breakfast, or here's a snack, or let's play this game is a great way to kind of steer them into a different direction. Now, if it actually goes into full-on tantrum, which will happen, people, it's normal, it's just part of toddlerhood, really. They're going to have tantrums on occasion. And really all that is an overload of emotions, right? Frustration, anger, not getting what they want, and they have really very limited skills for coping with those emotions. And so it just overwhelms them and they go into full-on tantrum mode. Now, the number one thing you have to remember is that you can't, under any circumstances, give in to a tantrum. The minute you do that, you've just signed yourself up for years more of the exact same behavior. So you really have to be careful that you don't reward it. My advice around it is to not ignore it, because it's really difficult to ignore a tantruming child, but to minimize your interaction. There's really no point in trying to rationally speak to a child at this point. Make sure they're safe, clear the environment so they're not going to hit their heads on anything if they're thrashing about, and just speak calmly that when this is over, I'm ready for a hug, or we can talk about it, and just really back off. It will pass, it will, and then perhaps you can have a discussion about, those angry feelings are bothersome, and here's some ways you can deal with them, and you can try this instead of this, for example, and come back to it. but it definitely will blow over. I'm not a fan of punishing a tantrum. That's just going to add to the frustration level. And really, for some kids, they're not even hearing you at this point. You could be talking to them till you're blue in the face and even getting angry or putting them in a timeout room or whatever the case may be, and they're really not going to hear that. So again, I would just let it run its course, let it blow over, and then have a discussion around it. All right, thanks so much for watching today. Good luck with your toddlers. Sleep well.